Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Can everyone hear me online and see my screen? Amol, can you see my screen? Hello?
Julie Roger
has joined the conference.
Hi Julie, can you see my screen?
as soon as my computer gets off of sleep mode, maybe.
Alright. So in the morning session, what we've looked at is basically the broad framework of what is going to be our life for 7.5 days. We looked at software development lifecycle, we looked at testing methodology, we also looked at the broad application platform, the application architecture, so that we understand the broad framework of the work that we need to take care. What I'm going to walk you through now
has joined the conference.
Whoever joined, please put me on mute on your laptop or PC. What I'm going to show you now is a sample application which is built with intent of giving you a broad framework of understanding for features of an application. So as I step through the application, I would need interactive feedback on what's going on. And that will help me understand what you already know, what you have to know, so that you can do what you need to do, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open an application, and I would need your keen observation on everything that goes on. What did I do? I just invoked one application, right? And this is not a web application. This is a client-server application, right? So what is the difference in client-server versus web? And why do we have these technologies?
Client-server application is you can access only on a desktop. If your application is installed in particular PC or the computer, then only you can use.
So what I'm understanding is that we expect the application to be locally available. Alright, so we are expecting the application to be locally available on your desktop. That's one important thing, as compared to installation of the application or hosting of the application on a remote server, right? So that's one difference that we have. Anything else?
Has joined the conference.
You connected directly to server. The application server, it depends on, it's your front end.
So the desktop is your supporting front end.
And then you by using your ideal concept, you can be connected directly to application server or database server.
So you get connected to the server. Let's not worry about whether it's a database server or the application server.
You exclude all this web server.
You exclude the internet.
Yes, internet and all web server.
Has joined the conference.
This role, you do not need internet. So
Okay, we don't need internet, that's one. But we need a network. Because our client, which is installed on our local desktop, needs to communicate to a server. Because client server is the paradigm that we're looking at. Client server is also two-tier. It does not have multiple servers in it. There is a client and then there is a server. These two are connected, and it is in a controlled environment. If the client-server application is being used, it is built on a specific technology. It could be built with Java, it could be built with .NET, it could be built with VB, Visual Basic, or anything like that, right? So, what is the other difference that we observe in web application versus client-server application? A client-server application is always with a specific technology and will remain same as standard for all installations as compared to diversity of platform that you have for web-based solutions. Because platform, if you remember the big picture that we saw in the morning, there could be diverse platforms, there could be diverse browsers, there could be different type of internet service providers. So that's a multitude of variables. As compared to client server, you have Windows 2000 professional desktop that is getting connected to the server, story over. As compared to the web, diversity in platform, diversity in browsers, diversity in service providers, and security. Because when you're going on the web, you need to provision for better security as compared to your local area network. Does it make sense? So when I am within the network here in my office, I don't need to worry about hackers coming in, right? So I am looking at a thick fat pipe connection to my web server or to my server. So my connection bandwidth, my security implementation, my diversity in platform, browser, and service provider for internet. All those are big differences in client server and web-based applications. In your interviews, some of the interviewers love to ask you, what type of technology you worked on? Have you worked on 2-tier or 3-tier? 2-tier is client server, 3-tier or more is web. And what are the differences? So this will help you understand the difference.
Also on client side, you can have, it depends on what your client needs. You can have different operating systems.
But on the client side, when you're looking at a client server application, the scope of that client diversity will be very limited, right? As compared to, you have a handheld device, you have a cell phone, you have a tablet, you have a laptop, you have a PC, and each one of them have multitudes of operating systems, which is not the case in client server. For example, if you're looking at a client server install in an environment of the enterprise will standardize on a particular operating system, and there will be a process or a proper upgrade path that will be defined. So all desktops in an organization will be working on Windows 2000, let's say. Now gradually they'll become Windows 2000, Windows 7, right? So you know your platform is controlled, it's not diverse, right? That's the difference. Now when I invoke the application, what did you see on screen? A login window came up. In this login window, what do you see? Sorry, I'm asking very dumb questions, but there is a reason why I'm asking this. So Alex is saying ID and password. Urvi just said user ID and password. You see anything different?
Agent name and password.
Agent name and password. Why do you three people see different things? Now, there's a concept that I want to bring here. There's a concept that I want to bring here, which is why I'm bringing this up. When you look at the object on a screen and you define what you're looking for, we need to define standards. So that when team members are looking at the object, everyone is talking the same language which is required. Which is the importance of standardization.
Has joined the conference.
Which is the importance of standardization, right? Remember we talked about CMM level 5. We talked about ISO. Why do we have all that? There's a reason for that, why it exists. So that when a team member starts working on the application and he moves to another application, the person who's taking on from him is fully aware of what it meant when and where in terms of the test cases, in terms of execution, in terms of design. So now, let's look at this once again. We are looking at the window that has a name, the login window, right? You can also call this as a dialog box. There's nothing wrong with it. This dialog box has some objects that are displayed in this. I heard agent name, I heard user ID. Is there anything else that you see here? I heard password as well. So let's try and analyze this. What do we see here? Anyone on screen, do you want to take a stab at what you see on screen here?
Yeah, this is Nupur.
Nupur,
I see we see an image.
So Nupur sees an image as well.
Yeah, and I see the click buttons, 3 click buttons.
So
Okay,
she's
cancel
also
and help.
sharing 3 additional buttons. Some of these are very dumb, but these are important, right? I'm sorry about that. So the object that we see here on screen, as per what Nupur just told us, we have the parent window, and in that parent window there are child objects. And these child objects are, let's begin with the first, agent name as a label. And there is agent name as a edit field. Text field, edit field, whatever you want to call it. Similarly, you see password and a password edit field. So that makes it 4. Then we have OK, cancel and help. That makes it 7. And then we have an image which is 8. So an object with 8 children is what we see here on the screen when we invoke the application. This is what we will have to test. And this will be my GUI test case, because I'm looking at the graphic user interface. Right? So that's how we will start working towards test cases. So my requirements will say user should be authenticated into the system. The design will say that the screen should have these objects. Upon clicking off the cancel button, the application should close. Upon clicking off the help button, user should be prompted with an answer. On clicking OK, these are all functional specifications. Right? So functional specifications will lay down action upon, when a user takes an action upon the object, what is expected. That's the function. So mathematically, when we define a function, what do we mean by defining a function? What is a function? Let's understand. A function.
You have input parameters, and you should get an output, you shouldn't get result.
So Alex just mentioned that there is an input and there is an output. So does everyone agree with that? So a function is a set of inputs. I'm not saying 1 or 2. It could be several inputs that goes into a code, set of lines or program or code which are related to each other. And there will be an output from that. So that's a function. Similarly, when you're talking about function in terms of functional specification or functional testing, you are looking at an object which is defined with a series of relationships. For example, if I have a function to check login here, I have to provide 2 inputs, which is my user input here for the password field, and the third input is the click of the button. So there are 3 inputs that I have to this function. Based on the relationship of these 3 values that I have, my user ID, password, and the button that I have clicked, the application will process the request, which is lines of code, and give me a result whether the user is allowed to access or not allowed to access. Does it make sense? Everyone on screen, online, do you also comprehend what I'm just sharing?
Yeah.
So this is what I understand from a function. Yes, go ahead. Was there a question, someone online?
No.
Okay. So when we are looking at graphic user interface testing, we are looking at making sure that everything as per the design works as it should be. So now I'm going to log into the application. I am providing user ID. And I'm clicking OK. So what do you see? There is a welcome screen. Then there is a splash screen which is showing, and then comes the application. What do we see in this application? Let's go one by one. We'll start with Ben. Ben, what do you see on screen?
I see a text box.
So Ben sees a text. Is that what you said, text box?
Yeah, text box and drop down box.
So she sees a text box, she sees a drop down box. Let's do one thing. Let's maintain some standards for definition of these objects. When you're looking at an object, always remember you start the top down approach. So you start with the parent. What is the parent here, Ben? The parent is the flight reservation window.
Yeah.
Right? So in the flight reservation window, is there something specific that you find as compared to what you saw on the dialog login? There is an image icon on the top left corner.
Yes.
There is also some Windows properties on the top right corner. On the top left there is the image. On the top right, there are some specific features of this window, which is minimize, maximize, and close.
Yes.
Three features that you have, minimize and close, are active. Maximize is disabled. These are all GUI, graphic user interface test cases. In this user interface, there are several other objects. So we'll start with the class and then we'll go online again. So Nilesh, what do you see here?
Menu bar.
The menu bar. In the menu bar you have File, Edit, Analysis, Help. These are 4 drop-down menus. Each of those menus will have choices. There may be sub-choices, right? So let's look at that now. So what do I have here? New order, edit order, fax order is disabled, and exit. You also notice that there are some characters that have an underscore. Those are the shortcuts or the accelerator keys, right? So now my functional specification will contain all this information. My functional requirement specification will say that the accelerator keys should be available on these options. When I click Alt-X or I click Alt-N or I click Alt-N here, the application should behave accordingly. So not only am I relying on functional requirements, I'm also looking at the business requirements being confirmed that it is behaving the way it should be. So when I look at these in the application, I am certifying that my functional requirement that was written has met the expectation. So I will have test case which will tell me that in my flight reservation screen, I should be able to see a file menu in which there will be 3 sub-choices. One choice will be disabled, and the other choices that I have will be with accelerated keys. Upon using that accelerated key, I will go to this particular page. That will be my test case. Now, when I execute that test case and I see this, it confirms that my test case is passed. If my test case has passed, my requirements will pass. My requirements will pass, my release is ready to roll out. Can you link it back up? Make sense? So likewise, when we look at the menu, we also want to look at the rest of the objects here. So Urmi, what's the next tier that you see here in the app? Toolbar. Toolbar has what?
Toolbar has a button icon with pictorial image.
Okay.
New,
So there is a new, there is a open, there is a close.
Chart,
Okay.
and don't know.
Report. That's for reporting purposes.
Report.
So these are the icons that will be laid down in the functional requirements and also in the design document, which we need to confirm by looking at. Right? Alex, what do we see after that?
After that, I see you. Text box.
You see the text box here.
Text box and Q.
List of values.
Scroll box.
No, scroll box is different. List of values or drop down list or there are so many pseudonyms that you have for this. Choices, whatever you want to call it. But technically this is called list of values or drop down list. Right? Now, which brings me into another subject here, an important subject, and it is also a question that you want to note down. The question should be, what types of objects can be used to create a client-server application and a web-based application? And majority of these questions, all you need to do is Google it. Go to Wikipedia and find out the answers for that.
Web application, second choice.
Web application. Because technology is different, right? Desktop application versus a browser-based solution. So the application objects that you use will be different. So when Alex started this, Alex came from the task icons that we have straight into edit field. But is there something that we missed? We have the section, the flight schedule section also defined, which we need to confirm that it exists. And then we go into the labels, the date of flight, fly from and fly to, add labels. Then we go into date of flight edit field. We go to fly from list of values, flight to list of values, right? Is there something different that you find in date of flight field?
Yes. It's type of date. It's not like text.
So what Alex is trying to stress on is a difference in a normal text field versus this text field. This template is called format mask. So what you're doing is you're forcing the user to use a specific input template so that you can interpret that properly, right? So this format mask is for date, where you have two numeric values slash, two numeric values slash, and then two numeric values after that. Are you familiar with any other format mask?
Calendar?
Calendar is not a format mask. Calendar will be a calendar object in which you will select the date and it will get populated.
It can be different numbers.
So you can have a format mask for amount.
For number. For the type number.
Don't go to your DBA concepts here yet. You're right that there is a format, there is a data type number. But in this case, data type number will work, but there is a specific size to it. And that size also is forced in a specific format. Right?
You're right.
So what happens is, if I have a telephone number as an input, I can force the user to give me a format that I want. I can have a 3-digit exchange, three digit, I don't know what's that called, and then 4-digit. So 334 can be in a specific template. Similarly, if I have to register myself on a credit card application and I have to provide my social security number, there is a specific format, 324 format. So you can force the user to look at a specific format in which they have to provide information. Similarly, why do we have a list of values here? Why can't we just keep it as an open field? Why can't I just have a fly from option which states that I can write in New York City, I can write in LaGuardia, I can write New Jersey, Newark, I can write Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Why don't I have that option?
Because it takes a lot of space in a form.
It will still take the same space in the form if you translate or transport 25 characters or 50 characters or 100 characters. in the drop-down? Right?
No.
Let's say I have a 100-character email address, and that's the choice that I want to give to the user in a drop-down list. Does that save me space by giving it in a drop-down list versus an open edit field? When you provide a drop-down list to the customer, what happens?
One option.
First thing is the user is forced to select a option or multiple options from the choices that we've given. It's not an open-ended text box where the user can type anything. So what happens to that? What is the benefit of that?
This is Julie. The benefit is standardization.
It is not only standardization, Julie, it is also less validation that the application needs to perform. So if I have flights that I cater to are limited to 10 destinations only, why would I want to keep an open-ended edit field where user can type in anything? Because I don't cater to the rest of the world. I'm just catering to 10 choices. So I provide those 10 choices as a restricted input option for my customer. And I force the user to pick up those only. And internally, when I use those 10 choices, I can have some key value associated with that. And I can store that key value in my database. So I am not only getting the benefit of forcing user to select what I want, I'm also reducing the size of the storage in the database tier. Does it make sense? Julie, does that answer?
Yes.
Alright. So, there's reasons why these objects exist and why these options have limitations. So, like in this case, when you look at the drop-down offers some number of choices. Because this particular software caters to a limited number of choices, that's why we've restricted it. Similarly, the other objects that you're looking at on screen, let's see those. So Alex, we see a default delivery of the form, right? This form has nothing populated in it. So, at this point in time, we need to validate when the form was delivered to us by default. That's stage 1 of our testing effort. The stage 2 of testing effort is when the user interacts with the system. What happens? So I want your keen observation back on the screen and would like to understand from you what happened. So let's fly from Denver to LA. And watch what happens. What changed on the screen?
The flight, this is Ben. The flight button was enabled.
So flight button is enabled. So it's a part of my functional testing that upon right selection of the flight schedule data, the flight button should be enabled. So this is the part of my testing stage 2, where I will first validate the default, second I will validate upon user action, and third will be post user action. What happens after user's action? So now the flights button is enabled, which means I should be able to find choice of flights for this criteria. And up comes a list of flights that is available. So now watch. As of now, on the screen in the order information, everything is empty. When I make a selection here, everything gets populated. Right? So what happened? Default delivery, blank screen, upon user interaction, changes in the object, upon user selection, data population on the screen. So when you're testing, you test for all these 3 stages. Now when you see these data items populated in the order information, we need to coordinate that did it populate what we selected or not. So what you saw in the drop-down list on the flights button, when you made a selection, we need to be aware that selection is indeed carried over. And as of now, what you see here, there are some defaults that are populated here. The value of flight number, the value of departure time, the value of arrival time, the airline, the price, and the total. All these are fixed values. And is there anything different in that as compared to the amount and name? The amount and name what you have can accept user input, whereas the rest of the fields cannot accept user input. Any reason why? Because you cannot change the flight schedule. You cannot change the flight number arbitrarily. You have to stick to what is available, right? So there are restrictions for usage on that data. So you can populate the user ID here. You can select the number of tickets and you can change the class of travel. Invoke the applications on your desktop. They should be available here. And execute this step. And I would like to know what happens when you execute this step of populating the node.
It will be same. Yes. Same as is an estimate for Mercury and Mercury.
Anything different when you execute this? Oh, sorry. The password is Mercury. On-screen team members, are you able to go into your remote desktops and work with it?
No, Ashish, this is Manju here. I didn't get the last part. What are we trying to execute?
Are you on your remote desktop?
No.
So, Amol, are you there? Can you please coordinate with her about the machine that she wants to use?
Yeah, he did give me the access for that. Yeah, I'll try to do that.
Are you connected to that machine?
No, not right now. Give me a second.
Yeah, please connect first.
Sure.
So as you notice, just watch my screen, what happens. As I populate the name here, see what changes. I want everyone back on the screen, please. As I start to type here, what happened? The insert order button is now enabled. Right? So I populate the name. Watch another step. I am modifying the number of tickets from 1 to 5. What happened?
5.
The total amount changed. If I change the class of travel, see what changes? The amount and price both will change. Right? So what are we looking at here? These are all functional test cases when the business requirements will state. When a user modifies the number of tickets, the user modifies the class of travel, the price should be recalculated. Right. And this is what we are verifying here by doing this. My functional requirements or functional requirement specification document will state if the number of tickets changes, if the class of flight changes, the price should be recalculated, which is inherited from BRD, Business Requirements Document, right? And then we'll have appropriate test cases to match that, right? Another thing that you will notice now, which will come up in a recent minute, if I click the insert order, what's going to happen? Watch. So there is a progress bar. The progress bar indicates the storage in the database, right? It tells me that the database is receiving information, it is getting processed, and post-processing, there is an order number that gets populated here. Also, if you notice, the insert order is disabled, and update order and delete order are now enabled. So these are all features and functions that will be part of our functional validation, part of our functional testing. Right? Now, we've created an order. If you look at it, we have now created an order. Every application has to support the CRUD rules. So the CRUD rules are create. So we've created an order. Now we want to read an order. So to read an order, what you will do is you will open the order. And of course there are business rules. You can open the order by customer name. You can open the order by date of flight. You can open the order by order number. So let's use the order number and open order number 125. And now you see that the order number 125 is same as what we created. So what does this confirm? The input, the storage, and the retrieved content, all three are same, right? Which confirms that my data, when I create an order, is getting stored properly. So that is my database accepting the input as desired. Does it make sense? And now let's apply a change. I have made a change in the number of tickets. I'm going to update this order. The application will return update confirmation. Update done. Now this update has been done as far as the user is concerned. But has the data repository been updated or not? I need to know that. So what do I do for that? I open the order again. And I find the updated information. So what happened now? I have validated create, I have validated read, I have validated update as well. Now I want to do the next step. So what happened now? It did not give me anything else, it just gave me a confirmation of delete done. But how do I confirm that it is not existing anymore? Try to read it again, as simple as that. So when I try to read it again, let's see what happens. That's it. Now, the $1 million advice that I have for you. Any application that you have, which has content storage, content retrieval, will follow the exact same guidelines. You'll have a create, you'll have a read, you'll have an update, you'll have a delete. So, any application that you work on, any technology that you work on, any type of solution that you work on, if you satisfy these conditions of create, read, update, and delete, and the data behaves the way you are expecting it to work, it takes care of your testing. There may be business rules. For example, a user may not be allowed to delete data. Can you delete your email address? No, you cannot. Can you stop receiving emails onto your email account? No, you cannot. When I place an order on an e-commerce website and the order has been shipped, can I cancel the order? You can, depending on business rules. There's a reason why I went and made it a little twisted. It is all dependent on the business rules. The business expectation on the transaction. If the business wants to give flexibility to the customer, they will define the business use case like that, in which they will say that the product may have been shipped, but the cancellation may be allowed or may not be allowed. It all depends on the business rules. So everything that we are doing here is supported by my design document, is supported by my functional requirement specification document, and is also dependent on my business requirements. All these things are interlinked. This was a quick demo for you in the application that we have here. I'm going to walk you through with another solution, but a web-based solution. Okay? Let's see what happens in the web-based solutions.
Ashish, this is Manju. I have one question.
Go ahead.
That number 125, will that be order number will be used again, or how is it?
Well, it is again business rules. You see what happens. It's a good question, Manju. You have 125 as an order that was created and the order was deleted. 99% of the time it will so happen the delete does not make anything vanish from the database. It is not a hard delete. It may just be a soft delete, which means that order number 125 may just be dropped when the next customer requests 125 may be created. But internally all the information that was provided by the customer may still sit in the database, but will not be actively available to the presentation layer. So there is a soft delete concept that you have at the database tier which allows you to restrict data visibility to the application.
Order number will be different.
Logically, order number should be different, only then you can keep a soft delete. Otherwise, you cannot keep a soft delete.
But if I understand, in this case, two records will be kept in database.
Yes.
It's a different order number, because it's not possible to keep it in the same number. Usually it's
I agree with you 100% on that.
But how do you restrict for users to not see both of them?
What happens is, what you can do is, in the table definition that you maintain for this data, you will have a column which will tell you that if this record is soft deleted or not. So when the application retrieves that data, it will look for a condition that it should not be soft deleted, then only I should get the record back. Delete indicator column. There is a delete indicator column that will exist in the table in my database, which will tell the application, hey, don't use this because this is not meant for you. So the application code, when it requests the data from the database, it will always filter that to provide to the front end. Right? Now I'm showing what we saw just now was a client-server application. Now I'm taking you to a web-based application. So what happened on a web-based application? What did I do that you see this? I just provided a URL, and this URL takes me to a DNS resolution server, identifies where the website is hosted, and brings back this page. On this page, what are the objects that we see here? Sarita, let's start with you this time. So what do you see on this page, Sarita? Sarita, you may be on mute.
Sorry, yeah. I have seen the username, password as a label.
You have to go mute on your laptop.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. I
Okay, alright. So what you're seeing here is slightly different than what you have seen on the client server application. You see...
The client server?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have seen the labels like home page, it is as a home page. I have seen username and password as a label. It is like checked. Yeah, and...
So let's divide the page into logical components. There is a header of the page. First of all, there is a browser window, and the browser window has a title, Welcome Mercury Tours - Windows Internet Explorer. So that's the title. Then comes the feature pack of the browser itself, where you have menu choices, you have a URL, you have task icons, right? We're not testing that.
Yes, sir.
Because that is Microsoft's business, not our business. My business is when I use the URL address bar, the page components that are delivered, those are as expected. So when I request for this URL, I am getting this web page. This web page is divided into header. So what do you see in the header? There's top left corner displaying an image, Mercury Tours. Then there is an image here, and then there are, what are these?
Menu bar.
Sorry?
Menu bar.
This is not really a menu bar. These are buttons, navigation buttons, right? These are like your taskbar. These actually correspond to menu choices. But in web terminology, these are called, these are not links. Links to these. These are buttons that will, they're buttons, they could be image buttons as well. Like, I don't, this one is probably an image button, right? So what you have is code behind this object that has some functionality associated with it. And that could be represented as a graphic, or it could be text which is hyperlinked. So again, the extension of the previous question, what objects are used for making web-based applications? Right? I probably think you have included that already, right? Right. So here we have images, we have navigation buttons, we also have edit fields, we have edit field labels, we have buttons that are executing some functions here, we have links, and there is also a table that you see here, right? So there is a column 1 which is carrying destinations, column 2 which is carrying price. So there is also a footer in the page, right? Now, I can, using this URL and providing user credentials, I can sign into the website. So now what do I see here? The header, the left navigation, right? Then the flight finder section. In this there is text. Then there is flight details section which has various objects, right? Each of these are GUI objects, right? So what is this that you find here? Urmi says these are radio buttons. Why would you use radio button object?
To click either one option.
To click only one choice.
Click for all the options.
The user for selection of choice. So can you give me 2 examples where you would like to use this? So you're talking about gender, in that you are expecting a user input, and hopefully it is in 2 categories only. Don't know if there are third. So any other example that you would like to give? Anyone? One more example of where you could use radio button choice.
Yes and no.
Yes and no for what?
Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong, but you're not giving me the full.
Or if citizen or if US citizen means we'll click yes or no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question is, you're being asked, are you a US citizen? And you can say yes or no. Absolutely right. Any other example?
I'm seeing payments by cash, credit card, or
Cash payment cannot be made.
credit card or check or something.
Okay.
Yeah, check off.
So you are restricting the choice of the user to one of the following available options. That's where you use radio button. I can also use a drop-down list for this, because I can say the user has to force select one of the choices from this. Why would you want radio button and not use list of values?
Because in drop-down box you have to click 2 times. Here,
It is
just
easier
this way.
The display also makes a difference, because the usability experience, the UX team members, they decide the form content based on the feedback that they have from market research. So the convenience for use for a radio button versus a choice from a drop-down, that definitely weighs in here. So what if you have 10 choices? What will happen in that case? Your form size will expand. And does that become unwieldy? Of course. So you will change from a choice of a radio button to another choice. So we see there's a radio button, and then we see list of values. Now list of values that you're looking at is again restricting the user to force select a specific choice only, or one of these specific choices. The calendar object that I think one of you talked about earlier. There you go. So now this is a calendar object implementation where you can go back and forth n number of years. You can select the month and select the date. And once you select the date here, let's say you want to select 26th of July 2012, it should populate this value here. So there's an internal control that allows you to pick the choice and populate it here in the calendar. Now if you want to go beyond 2012, the 2 drop-down values that you see here do not support it. I want to book 1st of January 2013. What do? I cannot book the ticket with this drop-down, because it will consider 1st of January 2012 by default. Otherwise, I'll have to go to the view calendar object choice and make my selection accordingly. Right? Then the next thing that I want to show you here is additional choices that come up here. What is this? What is this called?
Checkbox.
Checkbox. Why is this used?
You option. Users or not users.
Multiple options.
You're right, and you're also right. You are, in this implementation, what you're looking at is the use of the ticketless travel. That means you don't want the ticket to be billed or ticket to be shipped. So you can use one choice here, that you're not looking at ticketless travel. So that is restricting the choice to give only one option. But when you have this object, the checkbox object, you can actually select multiple choices instead of single choice. For example, if they ask you a question, let's say you want to post your resume on a website, and this website expects you to provide the states where you want to look for your job. So you have New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, whatever you want. As multiple choice. So you would like to use this as the object of choice to implement that. Right? Similarly, can you give me two examples? Do you think where we can use this?
Multiple choice of question. Online exam, we have like multiple choice. Driving license exam, we have.
Driving license gives you only one.
Radio.
Yeah. Their implementation is radio only.
Some multiplication, multiple choice.
I need an example. I know some multiple choice, but what?
You can have more than one answer on.
Absolutely correct, but I want an actual business case where you think it can be used. Online team, please. I need some participation here. Where do you think we can use checkbox?
In the education level, like
In the education level.
yeah.
I have a high school diploma, I have a degree, I am also master's and a PhD.
Yeah, we can use the checkbox for that.
What is my highest level of education? Then it becomes a radio button. Right? Good example. One more example. We need two examples always. I want a status report on my e-commerce website for all my previous orders that I have placed. So I checked order number 1, check order number 2, check order number 3, click generate report. It tells me what's going on. That this order was shipped on this date, it was delivered on this date. We have a proof of delivery signed and delivered to us. Possible? Yes, we can do that. Anything else?
And we can go for the shopping thing. We can use the checkbox one.
Shopping. Where would you like to use this in shopping cart?
Shopping, not in the shopping cart. Whenever you are using, like if you're selecting the product, we can use the checkbox with that.
Okay, what I can help here is you have a list of products. You are buying a flat screen TV, right? And you select a vendor of your choice. You go to Best Buy, you go for flat panel TVs, and you have a list of choices. You have a 56-inch, you have a 60, you have an 80-inch. And you want to compare them. So there's a checkbox. You select them and you click compare, and up comes the comparison chart. Right? But that's my example. I want your example.
Travel. When you kayak.com,
Kayak, okay.
there is a same form with the destination where you want to go, and there are compare like which like Priceline, Expedia, Orbit, click all of them and compare all.
So Kayak is giving you a choice to pick up flights from various service providers, like Pricelines of the world, and come back with a comparison. A good example.
Another one is the FIFA online shopping.
Excellent. She's hungry, I think. Or she had a pizza in lunch. There are two reasons why you're using this. It's a good example. So you're ordering a pie online and you're looking at your preferred toppings. Right? So you just go put check boxes across whatever you want and your final order will contain the list. Right? So the idea here of this exercise is to understand the object. That's the first step. The object has some specific properties. That's the second step. Because we know radio button has some properties. Checkbox has some properties. List of values has some properties. A link has some properties behind it, right? The idea is to be most familiar with all the type of objects. Be familiar with the properties of that object that make it unique. And use that for our testing. That's where the winning game comes in. That's where you have the benefit over all the other team members who would be in your team, where you are familiar with the object properties, and how to use those properties for your testing. For example, in the flight reservation application, the client-server application that we saw flight reservation button disabled. But at certain stage, it became enabled from disabled, which means the property of the object has undergone a change. Right? Then, we're looking at the status. We're looking at insert done appears when the order is inserted. Update done when the order is updated. The order number appears. Right? So these are the important things that will help us solidify our concepts and help us improve our testing. So in this example, what we are looking at, we have a checkbox, we have a drop down, we also have edit fields that are existing, and they are defined in a specific layout. So my specific layout is defined in my design document. The content that is displayed here and a content that is marked in passages which is mandatory, right? Because the red indicates that these are mandatory fields. So these are all driven by business requirements, translated into functional requirements, complemented by design, part of our test cases. When they get executed in the test script, we certify that everything is working fine. Make sense? So now we have seen the broad picture of the technology platform. We have seen a client-server application. We have also seen a web-based application. So now, let's try and familiarize ourselves with the actual testing process. So what happens when you go for testing? So what we will do is, I would want you to test one order each on the client-server and one on this one here. Right? So you can use this URL that you have, which is 192. So you see this URL 192.168.1.160, port 8081. So that's the URL that you need to use. So when you go onto the website, the user ID that you have is Jojo. That's the user ID. And the password that you have is Bean, B-E-A-N, B as in bum or butter or beta, whatever you want to call it.
Ashish?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got the IP address now. What are we supposed to do?
What you're supposed to execute an order on this web page, the website that you have, to get yourself familiar with the workflow or the steps that you have here.
But how do I have the remote access here and then?
No, you have the remote access, then invoke a browser in that, or you can do one more thing. Just give me 1 second. You can try using this URL on your PC directly instead of going to the remote desktop.
Okay. Sure.
So you don't have to go to the remote desktop to execute this. You can type in this URL that you have, khoj-inc.serve http://8081/mtors. And you will see the same website delivered to you.
Okay, I'll do that.
And on this website, when you use Jojo and Bean, you should be able to log in, and after login, try to book a flight for yourself.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right?
Sure.
Hello, Ashish, it's Ben speaking.
Just give me 1 second, Ben.
Okay.
192.168.160. Yes, Ben, go ahead.
What is the password for that, Ashish?
The password is as follows. The user ID is this, and the password is this.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. This one copy.
Ashish?
Yes, who is that?
Julie?
Yes, go ahead.
Do I need to, I saw the option to log in, and I'm curious, do we have to log in, or when I click on flight on the left-hand side, I also have the opportunity to book a flight? Do I need to log in with the user ID that you specified, Jojo, and password Bean?
Exactly. You have to log in to book a flight. You cannot book a flight otherwise.
Okay.
All right. So what we are doing here is trying to familiarize ourselves with the application and the application object, based on which we will start working on what we need to do for our testing effort. So we will go through a process of understanding the workflow that we've done so far. We will create test cases, we will execute test cases, and declare success or failure based on that. And the first tool that we start interacting with will be our test repository, or a repository which contains all this information, and that will be Quality Center. So once you've stepped through all this that you're looking at, you will start working on Quality Center.
Ashish, what do we do after booking the flight?
After booking the flight, we hold back and then go to the next step of using the quality center. So you can book multiple flights if you want to. You get more flavor of how the application behaves. Have you tried using booking a flight as a return instead of just one way? And do you see any problem?
Hello, Ashish, Ben speaking. Hello? Hello, Ashish?
Yep, go ahead.
After booking the flight, what we should do?
You should try to book another one.
Oh. So, just want to practice the booking the flight, that's it, right?
Right, absolutely right.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Ashish.
Yes.
Yeah, Manju here. Now, once we do the booking, we log off, and then again we log in, and if we want to see the status of the booking, which is the point where we can see it?
I am not sure if you can see it, but you can try.
Because I logged off and then I logged in with the same name, then I see the status of booking.
Okay, so let's try if you can actually do that, but I would be doubtful if you can actually do it.
Okay.
Because this does not give me any option to look at what I need, right? It is not taking me to support. I can go to profile to create a new user. I can go to itinerary to see what are the options for flights. Or maybe itinerary has those bookings that I've done.
I mean, once we booked and maybe we want to make some changes.
Exactly. I don't think you can do that. So let's look at this here, what you're seeing. So let's say I made a booking today. Let's see if it can deliver that booking. (7/16/2012). This is probably the one that I just booked. Let me try booking another one and let's see what happens. So I go onto the home page. I make my preferences here. I log in. And I want to book a one-way ticket from Acapulco to Zurich. And I select this choice of flight. The credit card number is not valid. Okay. You'll be surprised. Don't be too sure about 10 digit. I just put 1, which means it's a bug, right? So I made a booking, Acapulco to Zurich on 7/8, right? So let's look at the itinerary now. (7/8) Acapulco to Zurich. 7/9 price is this. It did not store information on the return because I made a one-way ticket. That's fine. Fine. So this is what you can do, but then can you change this? You cannot. The application is not ready for that. Okay?
Sure. And Ashish, what is the major difference between a client server-based application and a web-based application, other than the number of extra fields?
All right. Who would like to take a stab at it? A client-server application versus a web-based application. What is the difference?
Other than, obviously the IP address is there on the web-based.
Well, not only is the IP address there, but also you have the web-based application available for anyone who has access to the system and internet. But a client-server application is not accessible to everyone. That's one big difference. The client-server application is on a dedicated technology only on a specific platform. Whereas the web-based application can be on diverse platforms, diverse browsers, diverse access bandwidth as well. You need to keep your application on the web more secure than what you have on a client server, because the diversity of people that are using the internet and also the hackers that are there on the internet. You need to make sure that the security is up to the snuff.
So client server is basically for a particular client or like an intranet? Is that what you're saying?
Intranet is not to be used in reference to this, because intranet is a web-based solution but restricted access to enterprise users only. Internet is open web. Intranet is restricted access but web-based.
Mm-hmm.
But client server is local within the local area network. Does it make sense?
Yep, kind of.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
How can I see my orders?
How can you see your order? Okay. You can just go to the itinerary. And in the itinerary, go towards the bottom of it. When it delivers them, go right to the bottom. Because it's in descending order of date. Sorry, descending order of date. Select this one? No, this is what you selected, right? You will know your booking.
Yes, I confirm two orders.
Yeah. See, everyone is working on the same database, because the common database, so anyone who creates an order will actually become the last order. Did you select New York to Poland?
You have a confirmation number, so you can find which one is.
No, well,
Yeah.
it depends on the business rules.
Right.
So the business team may expect a confirmation number delivered. It may not look at a confirmation number delivered. All right?
So even if your client calls, then they have to figure it out like.
It is difficult to find out who
Yeah.
made the booking, what was the booking, etc., etc.
I have one more thing that
Go ahead.
question about when we versus round trip versus one way.
Okay.
Is it possible, right? When we do one way, right? Still, the returning pop-up it will be disabled. It's not, when I click on one way, still it's not disabled. It's like enable.
You qualify to be a tester because you know that there is a problem here. It does not meet the business expectation. When you're looking at a single ticket versus a round ticket, the choices for the field that should be delivered should change.
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at a one-way ticket, I should not be forced to provide my return ticket data.
Yeah.
The application does that, which means it's a bug. Right? So what we are looking at now here, I'm giving you a sample of requirement specifications, BRD. The BRD, the business requirements document, and the functional requirement specifications document. In some cases may be interchangeable. Maybe. I'm not saying always is. In some cases it may be interchangeable. So let's look at our software requirement specification document. which is also functional requirements. So what you would find in the functional requirements or the system requirement specifications document, it will tell me what is the purpose of this. The purpose explained here, it's a Mercury flight reservation system which is interactive, where it can be used by potential customers, my software managers, my software developers, QA managers, and QA testers. This document will be used by this group of users. Make sense? Then we define the scope. So what is the scope here? This is the high level requirement specification document which will be like this for your projects as well. So scope will tell me what is to be done with this application. This application should be a multi-user client-server application designed for travel agents. So this is business thinking what they want. They want a system that is multi-user, client-server based, and will be for travel agents. Okay? The application shall run on agent's workstation, which is client, and connect to a centralized Oracle database server. So I have distributed network of booking agents. Those agents are sitting in their offices on which I will install the client application. This client application will connect using some medium, be internet or modem or whatever, or a dedicated connection to my centrally hosted Oracle database. Using the FRS, each travel agent can supply flight order services to customers. So you call into the travel agent's office, the travel agent logs into the system using Mercury. Mercury walks you through with the reservation that you want and gives you a confirmation, right? And the next thing that we want to look at, this is something interesting. These are non-functional requirements, which states up to 2,000 travel agents can run the FRS simultaneously. What does that tell me? I have concurrency expectations of up to 2,000. They can be located within a 600-mile radius from the server. Using the flight reservation system, a travel agent can order flight reservations, create send tags, or produce reports and graphs summarizing the reservation information. This does not talk about detail. How, what, when, where, who, nothing is specified. So this is my system requirement, which is at the highest level. Then comes the details as we go further down. It starts to give overall description of the application. From product perspective, what do you want? You want the flight reservation system to be self-contained product. There should be no dependency. There is no payment exchange that has been set up here. There is no external third-party calls that need to be exercised for validation. When you're looking at booking an order, not booking an order, posting an order for an e-commerce website, what happens there? You buy, you put it in the shopping cart, and you put some information about shipping, right? You also put some information about your payment. All that is not a part of this requirement here, right? You're not expecting the ticket to be delivered to your customer. You're not expecting a credit card payment to be processed for a request that the customer has given. So these specifications do not talk about it here, right? Then we talk about the user interface. When we talk about user interfaces, we're not talking about the user design. We're talking about only the screen. The screen should be able to handle resolution of specific choice. 640 by 480 pixels to 1600 by 1200 pixels. That means the user could use different type of monitors, right? And we need to support test for all these variations that you can have for screen resolution. Each form should have a unique title. It does not say what the title will be. It should say that the screen dialog, when the login dialog comes up, it should say login. When the flight reservation form comes up, it should say flight reservation system. That's not coming in this document, because this is your SRS, system requirement spec. Then it's talking about hardware, what type of hardware on which the application will run. Then it talks about some other features. Sorry, Julie, are you still experiencing this problem?
No.
So is it fine now?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see the message earlier. Now we go into the product functions, what the product needs to process. First thing I want to look at is security, because the user has to be authenticated for access, right? The next thing that you're looking at is creating an order, updating an existing order, deleting an order, opening an existing order, fax up an order. All these are high-level information that needs to be processed in terms of what business wants. So let's look at create order data here. The travel agent creates a new flight reservation order as follows. The customer gives the agent the date, location. After entering information, the agent views available flights, presents to the customer. Based on the customer request, the agent selects specific flight and enters the rest of the order information, which is number of tickets and seat. Class, right? What class you prefer. When all selections are satisfactory to the customer, the agent inserts the order in the database. SRS returns an order number for future reference. This is what you were looking for in order confirmation. So this is not giving me details, but giving me the high-level business process. That's what goes into the system requirement specification document. This information that you're looking at is available in your training DVDs under this book, TD60CS. Then we're looking at what are my outputs from the system. See, always there is the CRUD rule that you need to validate, and then there is the report rule that you need to validate. The report rule tells you the outputs that you can expect from the system. It could be an output in form of a web page. It could be an output in form of a printable document like the report. It could also be an output in form of a graph that is generated. So this is the output that you need to validate. So here it is talking about the analysis report, analysis graph, and help. Now, there are certain other features also that it wants you to know. User constraints. Travel agent using a flight reservation system may not be familiar with using a personal PC, right? Therefore, the interface should reflect the basic telephone and paperwork method previously used by travel agents for reserving flights. What does that tell you? You are just automating the existing system and probably carrying over all the data fields that you have in the manual process into the screen. That's it. It is not showing anything to design. It's not showing anything to the functional aspect of the application. So there are some constraints that they want on the system. Flight reservation system should be able to support 2,000 users for each Oracle server. Which means if I have more Oracle servers, I should be able to add 2,000 users going forward. So if I have 1, I have 2,000. If I have 2, I have 4,000. If I have 10, I have 20,000. A server must be able to handle 600 simultaneous agent requests. So what does that mean? 600 concurrent users can be active.
Without the system crashing?
Absolutely.
I think that is.
Absolutely. It will be that without the system getting into any performance glitches, it should be able to serve 600 concurrent users. Now let's try and understand the difference in concurrency and general usage. Concurrency means all 600 are actively using at same instance of time. I can have 600 concurrent connections active and doing things at the same instance of time or distributed over a period of time. But when I'm looking at all 600 active at one point in time, it means there's a huge resource consumption that's going on at that instance of time. There is a lot of session management. There's a lot of server resources, memory, disk I/O, network. Everything is getting chewed. All servers should be made to keep the server from crashing. Any server malfunction can freeze 2000 agent workstations. That means if your Oracle server is not able to cope up, not only are you losing those 600 concurrent users who can work, you're also losing on potential business for all the 2000 users that will be working on the system. Response time, each agent's database access request shall not exceed 1 minute. One minute is a hell of a long time. But this is client-server application. So client-server application has a huge fat processing on one end of the pipe. Because server does all the processing. Client is very lightweight. As the server is doing all the processing, it may have huge footprint or baggage for every request. So they are compromising and saying everything should be in less than 1 minute. In order to maintain data security, the flight reservation system shall be accessible to authorized travel agents only. Any user without a valid password shall not be allowed. That's not right. Then data integrity. What is this? Data integrity. The database must contain account data. Any inaccurate flight data may result in financial loss, both for airlines and travel agents. Now, the data that you have for the airline data repository that you have within your application, it needs to be updated on a regular basis. Because your flight schedules will keep changing. There will be alterations based on business flows and the seasonal cycle. Number of flights during Christmas may increase. Right? Number of flights during summer holiday season may increase for the airline. So you need to keep the data updated properly. Then comes the assumption section. Now we are going into the assumption section. Will tell you that we are not doing credit card payment processing. We are not doing shipping of tickets, right? It will lay down that. Now we are going into the specific requirements for functional area. Here you are looking at security requirements. The security requirements state that when you are looking at user authentication, the user authentication has to follow these rules. You will provide agent login name and agent password. Then you will provide the output, which is status of the login, which is either successful or not. So your steps that you have, user ID, password, and button, will result in an action which has to fall in line here. If I provide the agent name and I do not provide the password, please enter password is the message. This is the error message. So now we are going into functional specs here. And these functional specs tell me that when my combination of user input and the expected field is this is the desired output. Does it make sense? So when I'm starting to work on user authentication, I will have one test case which says populate my agent name, don't populate the password, and click OK. And you confirm that this message appears. If this message does not appear, that means my test case for this failed. Right? Similarly, I will go into the next, which is I provide the password, I provide the agent name, and I provide the incorrect password. Then I will confirm the error message, so on and so forth. So now this is my functional requirement. Similarly, let's look at the create order functional requirements. So when you're creating an order, what is happening? You will enter a new requested date of flight, select flight from city, select flight to city. Right? The list can be accessed only if flight from is already selected. Which means if you do not select flight from, flight to cannot be selected. That's the functional specification. Then, only when the above are completed with valid values. Which means what? All three should be correct. You cannot have a date in the past. You cannot have a combination of flying from Denver to Denver or LA to LA because you cannot ticket, right? Then the flight button becomes enabled and can be pressed to bring the available flight, right? After selecting the flight, the form closes and the information is passed on to the main window order information section, which becomes enabled. Then, only after entering the customer name, insert becomes enabled, right? Allow the agent to save the order in the database, which is what we have seen, right? By default, the seat class is set to economy, which is what we've confirmed. When you create an order, it always gives you one passenger and economy. If chosen otherwise, the agent can change it accordingly. The ticket price depends on the selected price and it changes. By default, the number of tickets is 1. If chosen otherwise, the travel agent can change it accordingly up to 10. When you're testing for up to 10, what data conditions would you like to see? Up to 10 means what? Does it mean equal to 10? Up to 10 means 1 to 9. 10 will not be acceptable. So, you will not only test from 1 to 9, but you will also test for 10 to confirm that the application rejects the request. That's called negative testing. Then, all the information is entered, checked, agent is inserting the order, insert order is done, update and delete are. Then comes update the existing order. And in update the existing order, as you modify the date, there are some business rules behind that. When the agent is changing the date field, he is required to re-choose the flight from the database. Why do you think that's the case? If the date changes, available flights for that day will change. That is why they are forcing you to change that. So that's your update order. Date rule. Then comes the fly from rule. You change fly from, you have to select again. When the agent is changing the fly from, is required to re-choose destination city. Because if the flight changes, your origin changes, your destination has to change. And you may not have it for that day. Similarly, fly to, when the agent is changing the fly to field, it has to re-choose flight. The agent can change the flight by bringing flight table, which means I can select a different flight from the table. Here, as I update that information, it will automatically get repopulated in my order. I can change the customer name to anything. I can change the seat class to anything, and I can also change the number of tickets, I think. Number of tickets can be up to 10. To update the order, I click the update order button and the confirmation comes up as update done. When the update is processed, the order number does not change. Remember that. Right? The next specification would be probably on your delete order, I think. So the delete order gives you a confirmation, you open the order and delete it. You can delete the order that exists on your flight reservation form directly as well if the delete order is enabled. Then open the order. You can open the order by customer name, date of flight, or order number, which is what we saw. There are combinations that you can use. If only one order is found, it is retrieved directly into the main window. So if I choose order number 125, and there's only one order number 125, it will automatically populate in the flight reservation screen. However, if I pick a date or if I pick a customer name which has multiple bookings, it will give me a list from which I need to select. If multiple orders are found, the search result form appears and allows the agent to select any flight. Right? Then comes opening the order, customer name, date of the flight, customer name, order number. These are the various choices. So in these choices, I can just use customer name. I can use customer name, date of the flight, and I can use customer name and date of flight. So there are combinations that I can use. And these will be our test cases that we will run. When I want to open the order, I can open the order by using customer name. So I will have a customer name input to that form. When I click that, the order should open. That's what will happen. Then the next choice will be date of flight. So I look at opening the order when I have only one order that is for that date. I will also test that opening the order for multiple orders for that date. Remember that, because you have to test both conditions. When only one result appears, when there are multiple results, and then you select them. Right? So that's my open order. Then there is fax order. The order that I have opened, I can actually fax. That's the next choice. And then it talks about report format. So let's quickly look at the function that we saw here. So now I'm trying to validate that when I open the order and the order has more than one result. See that? It gives me so many choices because I've used this name so many times. So I can select, now I'm selecting order number 79. When I open this, order number 79 should be opened here. So that confirms that. Yes, go ahead. What was that?
Pardon me. What was the password again to log into that system? I was logged out by accident.
You logged out of the remote desktop or you logged off the flight reservation system?
The flight reservation system. It actually shut down by itself.
You're talking about the web-based or you're talking about the client server that I'm using at this point in time?
The client server.
Mercury and Mercury. That's the credentials you want to use?
Thank you.
So now I can look at sending this as a fax. So it confirms that whatever is my order information here needs to appear on this form. So this is the validation that we need to perform, that the data that is existing in the order form gets populated in the fax form, and when I execute the fax form, I can preview this fax, right? This is the content of the fax. B, I can send the fax, and I will also look at sending my beautiful bird along with this. So I can look at preview. The preview should carry the image. And now I can exercise of sending the fax. So it will simulate. It's not actually doing anything, but it is simulating. It's dialing, it's connecting, it's sending the fax, and up comes the order confirmation which says fax has been sent. So this is also a part of our validation process, where we will validate the functional test cases that meet this. So let's look at the fax expectation here. When the order is displayed on the main window, agent can fax a copy of the order. The form contains all the order information in read-only edit fields. That means the customer cannot change it. Sorry, the agent cannot modify it. After entering the fax number, the agent can choose to add personal signature, right, in the signature area. This will be sent via fax modem. If fax was successfully sent, the status will change to fax sent successfully. The agent can choose to preview the transmission before sending the fax. Now, the fax order form detail. So validating the content of the fax order form. The fields are read only, contains all the order information from the database. Customer fax is a edit field, right, where you want to type the fax number. Agent personnel draw signature area, right? So you can have a signature which is basically personalizing the fax. Then there is send with signature option, where you can limit the content that you are sending, or you can include the signature as well. Fax preview, send, cancel, and clear button on the signature. Right? Okay. Now the next thing that we have, I will have a data condition, error condition, to confirm that the fax, when it is being sent, and I send it without a telephone number. That's my error condition that I need to validate, which is what is shown here, right? Please complete the fax number. If valid fax number is entered, send signature with order is set, but no signature is drawn. So that's another condition, right? So in this case, I write the telephone number. I also say send signature, and I hit send. Right? So this is, in some shape and form, our testing effort desired on this, right?
Who will prepare test cases?
We as test engineers are responsible for test cases.
But what is this document?
This document?
Yes.
This document will be created by the business team, in which there will be a business analyst, there will be a product owner, and there will be a requirements manager who will take care of this document that will be given to us. Okay. And based on this document, we will create our test cases.
So every member of QA team.
No, not everyone will create test cases. My QA analyst is responsible for generating test cases.
So what is your responsibility as a QA engineer? What you have to do, just to follow up this?
The hierarchy of the team is this QA director, which of course does not do anything, because he is the manager, he is the management cadre. Then comes my QA manager. After QA manager, I have my QA lead, who is supervising and reporting to the manager. Under the QA lead, there are senior QA analyst and senior tester. These two people are responsible for test case preparation, test case update. Then comes the QA analyst and test engineer, who will be responsible for execution as well. So that's how they do it.
QA analyst just usually gets all this stuff just doing.
QA analyst will get this document, and based on this he will create the test cases as well. The test execution engineer, the tester, or the senior tester will be responsible for executing test cases.
So who will be? Who am I going to be?
You could be a QA lead, you could be a senior test analyst, you could be a senior tester, you could be a QA analyst, you could be a tester. Anyway. Tester will just look at the script, execute the test cases, and say, I'm done. So that's the worker B of the hierarchy. Just executing, not doing any thinking. There is a script, he follows the script and executes and delivers the result. period. The analyst will read through this and translate this into a test script that is to be followed by the tester who will execute the test case. Make sense?
In a future classes, you're going to teach us how to prepare.
We're going to do it today, not future classes.
Okay.
You're going to do it now,
Okay.
in a little while.
Okay.
So this is now talking about functional specifications, what needs to go in order. Right? The customer name is the edit field, order number is the read only, departure time is read only, etc., which is what we've seen on the application, right? Now you're talking about error messages, invalid date of flight, right? Then you have please choose a fly from city. So these are all functional requirements that have to be met in the application, based on which we will create our test cases. When you're looking at flights table form, this will be accessed by pressing flight button. It contains a list of all the available flights found in the database for the date that you've requested. The agent can select one of the flights and the table will close when you click OK. So this document gives you a good understanding of system requirement specifications, business requirement document, and functional requirements. Go through it, read through it, because this is what will be your basis for preparation for your interviews as well, as to what you can expect in these documents. Right? So now, let's go to the exciting part of our discovery, which is go into Quality Center. So what happens is, Quality Center that you're trying to access from here, you will always access it with a IP-based URL. You can also access Quality Center from your home PC. But when you want to access from home PC, you need to use this as your URL. So please note this down so that you are able to access the PC, the Quality Center. When we start with Quality Center, I'll walk you through with two major functions that you have with Quality Center. One is the administrative function, and the second is the user function. The administrative function is basically to create a repository, create users, associate users to the repository, etc., which as a part of a project you will never do directly. You will have your system administrators who will take care of that. But I will show you how it is done so that you can use that going forward. Why are we using HP Quality Center? Okay. Now, as we go into the tool, you will realize the benefit of that. But I can give you a high-level overview of why Quality Center. When we start testing, we start with the BRD, the Business Requirements Document, from which we create our test cases. And in the test cases, we have test steps that will pass or fail. And we will log defects for that. Right? Now, Quality Center is one repository that can allow you to connect all these together in one string. So I have a requirement for which I write my test cases, and I log a defect if my test case fails. So, which requirement is not satisfied? I can look at and find out by click of a button. How many defects have been opened for this requirement? I can find out that. This defect that I have logged will kill which requirements that we have so that we know where we are going to have a problem. It will give you the ability to not only just create your documents, but also be able to link your documents back and forth. These are some important things because of which Quality Center is used. Now, Quality Center also allows you to manage your releases. For a release, you will have a lot of requirements. For a requirement, you'll have a lot of test cases. For your test cases, you'll have a lot of test steps. And for test steps, you will have data. All that can be done in one single application. And this is not it. You can also generate reports in QC. You can also not only just report, but also maintain and log defect reports. So you can create your test repository, you can execute test cases, you can manage defects, and you can report. Everything can be done in the same system. So this is the Quality Center application which I am showing you here. This Quality Center application has Quality Center, which is used by the users. Then you have Site Administrator, which I will show you now. So in the Site Administrator section of the application, an administrative user can go in and create the object or the project repository in which you can work. So what happens is, when you start working in Quality Center, you create a test process which is dependent on some specific repository. So the first thing that you want to do is create a new domain. As you see here, we have created separate domains for each batch. Now, if I was a software testing organization and I am testing for Yahoo, and I'm also testing for AOL, I'm also testing for Google. So what I can do is I can create 3 separate domains for these customers. Right? So let's say the batch 71 that we have is one
left the conference.
So we're going to create that domain. You see, domain is created. Then under this domain, what I need to do is create individual projects. Because when I'm working with Yahoo, I may have a project that comes up for Yahoo Autos. I may have a project that comes up for Yahoo Mail. There could be Yahoo Real Estate. There could be Yahoo Finance, right? Those are individual projects that I need to manage. So, likewise, I'm going to create projects. But before I create projects, I need to create users that need to be associated with that. So let's start creating the users first. So when I create users, this is the workflow. I can add a new user, I can delete a user, I can create a site administrator, I can also create a new user by importing them from LDAP. What is LDAP? LDAP is Light Directory Access Protocol, which is used in corporations to export and import data of the users that exist in the environment. So when you log into your application in your office or on your desktop in your office, it validates your user credentials against a directory. That's the LDAP directory. So let's create some new users here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a user with 71 Nilesh. Oh, and I'm saying Nilesh again and again.
Has joined the conference.
So I've created a user, Eilish. Now I'm going to create the new user. And now I'm going to create Alex as the user. I'm going to create myself also as a user here. So bear with me, I'm just going to make more users for everyone so that we can get started. So I'm going to make Ben as my user.
Has left the conference.
Then we have Julie. And then we have Manju, Nupur and Sarita. There's a reason why I created the users before I created the project, because when I create a project, I need to have a user for that, so that I can associate the user with that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a user for Amol as well. As of now, if you see, the user is not associated to any project. Now, when I go here, I'm going to create projects by your name. So we will follow the same exercise. I'm going to create a project. I can create a new project,
joined the conference.
or I can create the project by copying an existing project, or I can create a project by importing data. Okay, I'm going to create a new project here. So this new project belongs to domain 71, and this will be now you see that there is a default database that is getting connected to this project. We are using Microsoft SQL Server in the background to support what we will do on this project. Okay. It wants me to associate a project user to this now, right? This is what I was trying to do earlier. So, okay. So, you are the owner of the project. I'm going to activate this project. So 71_Eilish is a project that you can log into. Similarly, I'm going to create the rest of the project here. Next one, 71_.
You have to sign any password for...
I've kept that blank on purpose so that you don't have to remember the password. You can have a password association here so that you can restrict user access.
Ashish, why are we not having all the users associated to the same project?
If I associate all users to the same project and someone modifies the work that you've done, you will not be a happy camper. Right?
Yep.
So I am creating a separation here, but you can always log into the other team member's project. I would encourage you to look at it if they're doing something different than what you're doing, but abstain the urge to change it or delete anything there. I can have every user in the same project, but that prevents you from learning what I want you to learn. Right? That's the reason why I'm doing that.
Okay.
And you have your own independent project to do what you want for your exploration and learning. I can understand it takes a little while because it's a little boring, uninteractive interaction that is going on now. But, you know, this helps that we have all working on independent projects. While I am doing this, you can try to log in into your projects and see whether you can access or not. So the list that you find here, Alex, Ben, Elish, and Urmi. Did I make you are MIN? I'm so sorry. I'll just modify it. Give me a second. Are you logging in now?
No.
I rename. I have to see that as well. I have modified it and you should be able to see the right name here. So we have Julie, now we want Manju, Nupur, and Sarita. Alright.
You have to select the site administrator, right?
No.
Query center?
Yeah. No password, blank. So with this we come to close of all the projects that we need to create. So what happens is when you create a project, it creates a data repository that has a lot of information that is pre-created. So if you see this, there are a lot of tables that are automatically associated with the project when I create a new project. At this point in time, I can see Nupur, Alex, Benz and Urmi already logged in. Nupur, you're using your old account. Nupur?
How do we know what the
I
password is?
corrected. Yes, I corrected.
There is no password for access.
Yeah, I'll
You want me to disconnect this? You can log in again on batch 71.
yes, please. Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah, hi Ashish. I have trouble connecting onto the QC screen, remote access.
What URL you're trying to use?
The same one, Khoj, inc.serve, Http. Yeah.
Okay. Are you trying this from the remote machine or you're trying it from your PC at home?
I'm trying from my PC.
So from your PC you're not able to see this URL, it's not serving?
I'm on that screen which says Mercury Tours from the last exercise we did.
No, but why are you on that screen? It should not be on that screen. When you write this URL, Khoj-incserve.http.com, you should, well, if you are on the Mercury Tours website, that means you are on the remote desktop. If you are on remote desktop, then you have to use this URL. Was that Manju?
Yeah.
Manju, you should be trying, if you are on the remote desktop, then you have to use this URL which is highlighted for you.
Sure, I will try to connect with that.
But if you are on your home PC, then you can use this one.
Yeah, I think I was on that one, the 8081M Tours, but it's still showing me the previous screen.
If you are looking at this to support what you want to do, then you have to log into the remote desktop machine.
Okay.
Then only you will see this URL work.
Okay.
Let's refresh it and see what happens. Alright. I have Alex, Benz, Elish, Julie, Nupur, Urmi logged in. And I can also find out the host from which they have connected. Does that message pop up for you? No? So maybe the chat server is not configured. So, on this site administration screen, we can create a domain. In that domain, we create a project. This project has users associated with it. I can see, as an administrator, who are the users that are logged in. I can also show you the licenses here, what we have. I can also show you what server we are using here. This is the server, this is the location of my log file. This is my database server. Right? I can now look at site configuration. This is where I define my site environment initialization file. I can say what is the max size of the attachment. 3,000 kilobytes, I can make it 20,000 kilobytes, I can make it 30 kilobytes. So this is where I would go and set up my configuration. Last but not the least, this is my site analysis, which tells me how my licenses are being used. If you look at this, on Sunday the 8th, my licenses that are being used as of now are showing this. My defect licenses are not being used. My requirement licenses are not being used. It's only my full license being utilized at this point in time, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log off here and log in as 71 Ashish into my project. So what I do in my project, I would encourage you to do same on your project as well, so that you get familiarity of what needs to be done. So this is the administration module, which you will never ever directly interact with. Now I go into the quality center. Everyone will experience the same handshake that you're looking at this point in time. There are some DLLs that get downloaded onto your local computer and allow QC to function the way it should. Oh, you did? Yay! So that is the function that you have in the IRC, Internet Relay Chat, that's what it is called. How can you respond back? I think you can respond on that same window itself. It could be because I logged off. That could be possible. So the moment I authenticate, I would have a batch and the project to which I am associated. I may be associated to multiple batches, I may be associated to multiple projects. So let me see if I can show you that here. See that? I'm associated to multiple domains. See, I'm associated to multiple projects as well. So let's go back to it's doing the first load for a new user in the environment. So it takes a little time to set up your environment to bring you back with the main screen that you're looking at on your desktop. So this is the main screen that comes up for me. There is HP Quality Center tutorial that I would like you to review before you come back for the next class, because this will give you a lot of information about what QC can do. By clicking that, I'm seeing it is working, so you can download it when you want to. So now, let's look at the interesting part that we see here. This application has several components that are laid down here. The first component that you're looking at is oriented at management. Management of what? Releases. So when I talk about a flight reservation system, there would be a flight reservation release 1, flight reservation release 2, release 3. Those will be releases that will be rolled out. So let's do one thing. Let's create a new release folder. FRS client server folder. In this, I'm going to create releases. So FRS flight reservation system client server release 1.0. Okay? You see, flight reservation system client server 1.0 release is created. This release has a release ID that is created automatically for me. It will also have a start date and there will be an end date as well. At this point in time, there are no requirements assigned to this release. I can provide some description about the release. Yes, go ahead.
For me, you know, create the same like for you. I have just name.
You just have name where?
On the right side.
You just have FRSCS?
Yes, I have FRS underscore CS underscore 101.
So you're looking at this, but you don't see this data here on this side?
Yes, and I don't have this last box
Because what you did was, instead of creating a release, you created a release folder at second level as well. So you may want to delete this and click this one.
Oh.
So make sure that you use the right icons because these icons have hidden meaning. So we create a folder which is telling me flight reservation system client server. In this I have flight reservation client server release 1.0. Similarly, I will create flight reservation system client server release 2.0.
Oh man.
Should we specify end date also?
Yes. Anything is good. At this point in time, for our understanding, if we can just provide a month as the date for it, that will be good. So we are looking at a release every month, right? And in this release, I can associate attachments. I can have what is my progress going in and what is the quality that will come up. Since there are no requirements assigned to the release yet, this information may not be available for me. See that?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is go back.
How can I save it?
You don't have to save it, it automatically saves it.
Oh, it says it.
So what we did was, for a release, we have multiple releases in a release folder. This is my release folder for my flight reservation client server application. But I may be using this quality center not only for flight reservation system client server, I may also be using it for flight reservation system web as well. So what did I do? I've created two parallel paths in which I can track my client server application. I can also track my web application. Does it make sense? Now, let's go and start working on the next step that we want to do. So this is what I've done to create, edit, delete a release for me. This release has to have requirements. And when I go to the requirements module, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder in which I will attach my requirements. The way I created the flight reservation client server folder there, I'm going to create another flight reservation system client server folder, because I want to maintain my flight reservation system client server requirements in this folder, in which I will create separate requirements now. I can further classify my requirements if needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create further sub-classifications in this, where I will maintain my security requirements for my flight reservation system, which is client server. In this, I'm going to start writing my security requirements. And my security requirements, when I start writing, it can be a functional requirement, it can be a group requirement, it can also be a testing requirement. Right? So my testing requirement is valid user can access system. That's my requirement, right? So, how do I want to describe this? Only valid users with proper credentials will be able to access the flight reservation system. Right? Make sense? Are you with me? Oh, you have the recording that you can always review if there is anything that you want. So I submit this requirement. This requirement is for testing, right? Now comes up the next requirement. In this next requirement, under security itself, valid user can access the system. For invalid attempts, user restart application. After user has made 4 invalid attempts, user will have to start a new session by closing the application. Make sense? That's another requirement that I have written here. Now,
my field, why is the do not have actually your field? That doesn't have reviewed field?
Reviewed field is there.
No, I didn't see it.
Here you go.
Oh.
So now, let's look at this, something interesting that is coming up. I will go back to my management here, go into the flight reservation system, and to this I would like to associate my requirements. So let's see how we can do that. You see this? I created a requirement, and this requirement can be assigned to a release. So when I look at the release calendar, it tells me that I can associate it with this release here, right? Similarly, I can go to the next requirement, do the exact same thing of associating it with a release. When I come back to management and I look at my flight reservation system client server 1.0, I see there are two requirements that have been associated with that. Does it make sense? So now what I can do is I can review my requirements and understand the progress of testing on my requirements. This is total 21 days release. The days remaining in the release is 21, so there is 0% expiration so far. I have no test executions done so far, and the coverage here is 0, right? Because I have not executed these test cases. I have not created the test cases, how can I execute them? So we will now start working on creating the test cases. So now let's go into the test plan module. Now this test plan module is where you will create your test cases. So we saw how we can manage releases. Each of these releases can have subsequent cycles. So the cycle will be FRS underscore CS underscore 1.0.1. Make sense? We can also create another cycle under this because you'll have multiple cycles, right? So this will be FRS underscore client server underscore 1.0.2. So you can imagine that every release we have 3 cycles that we will run. Of course, you can maintain all the start dates and end dates of these cycles. I wanted it to be in proper order, so I think I'll have to change it to different. I'll make it 3. I'll make this as 1. Make this as 2. So we have our releases planned. For each release we have cycles that are associated with them. To my requirement, to my release, I have also allocated my number of requirements that will be covered. So now let's go into the test plan module, and in the test plan module see what we can do. So the first thing that you want to do is, this follows the exact Microsoft hierarchy about the Object Explorer. There's a parent, there's a child, there's a great-grandchild, parent, child, grandchild, great-grand, and so on and so forth. It follows the same hierarchy. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to create the hierarchy for my testing project, the way I've created in flight reservation client server and flight reservation web. So the first level of difference that we create is my client server, web. Under my flight reservation client server, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create separate classifications for different types of testing that I want to execute. The first type of testing that I want to execute is functional testing, right? I would also like to execute GUI testing. I would also like to execute performance testing. I would also have need for database testing. Why are we creating this logical separation here? So that I know exactly what categories my test cases belong. Right? So now, when I am looking at my functional test cases, in this I would be able to describe this section caters for functional test cases to certify flight reservation system client server application. I can have attachments in this. I can also have some live analysis which tells me about my progress. Since we do not have any test cases here, we don't have any progress chart. So under my functional test cases, I would like to include some tests. So let's try and execute some tests here. It is a manual test that I want to write here, which is to invoke the application. Right? Invoke the application. So when you are trying to invoke the application, what do? This app you don't want to corrupt your environment that you're testing in. So you want to make sure that all the old instances of the application are closed. So that's the brief description that I've provided here. When I go into the design steps, if you are with me, then I can go into the next in the design steps. So what do I do in the design steps? The first thing I want to check is flight reservation system client server open. The expected results? No. Invoke Does it make sense? There is no FRS active on the desktop, right? That's step number one. When I want to add one more step in my test case, I click the plus sign and up comes the new step form. In this new step, invoke the application using right? You invoke the application using the path, right? And the path is available by right-clicking on this and going to Properties. So this is the location where I have the executable file. So when I invoke the application, what will happen? Login dialog will be delivered, right? Is that correct? Yes or no? And that confirms my invoke success, correct? After this is done, what is the next step? I will now go into, what is the next step? Authentication. So invoke application is maintained as an independent step because I will use this invoke application in several test cases, right? So I should keep this as a separate module that I can reuse multiple times. I want to create a new test case now, which is user authentication. In this user authentication step, there is a precondition. Application should be open and the dialog login should be displayed, right? That's a precondition for user authentication step. And what will be my design steps here? The design steps will be populate user ID, which is Mercury, and password, which is also Mercury, and click. What is the expected result? Application will display welcome, logging in message, and then splash screen to welcome, and finally deliver flight reservation system order form, which is empty. Correct? The order form will be delivered, which is empty. Correct? How do I know that the order form that is delivered to me is correct? For that, we need to execute the GUI test cases. Similarly, when the invoke application comes to a logical step where the application login dialog box is delivered, I need to execute a test for the login dialog box showing appropriate objects on the screen. Does that make sense? So for that, let's go into the GUI folder and create test cases here for validation of those objects. Dialog login test step, right? Here I will write my test cases to validate title of the dialog window equals login. We can do it here. Dialog of the login window, and it should be login is the expected result. Next step, labels on the dialog edit fields. agent name and password. These are the expected, right? Then my edit fields. Oops, sorry. So we have the edit fields, and we also need to add anything else?
Okay, that's one. Okay,
cancel, help. Is there anything that we need to know about OK? Is there an accelerator key? It is focused as compared to cancel and help, right?
Right.
Right? So that covers my button. Okay. After the button, what else? So now you have an issue. What do you do with the image? Because you cannot show the image as text. So what you're doing in that case is you go here and go into attachments. Select the choice of attachment here for a screen capture. Drag the object onto what you want to capture. It will get captured. And now you can attach this to your test case. Now image can be validated. Right? So you can upload this selected image into QC. Done. So your image is done as per attachment. And then is there anything else that's left here? We have labels, we have edit fields, we have buttons, we have the image object. So that confirms that all the objects on my dialog login have been covered. The only other thing that I would like to add here is this edit field, These all, the number of the step can get corrupted. All you need to do is just drag and drop, it should fall in line. Right? Now, the edit field that I'm showing here, there is some qualifier that I need to add here. So let's review that. The agent and password field are the expected fields that you will find. Will be empty and cursor will appear on agent name first pixel. Right? So likewise, you can write your test cases for flight reservation window as well. You will cover your flight schedule section, order information section, and the default. Because what will happen is you will create test cases for GUI validation on this screen for default delivery. Right? So you will cover all the aspects. You will have edit fields. You will have drop-down values. You will have flight button disabled. The edit, the insert, update, delete button disabled. So that's your default check that you want to execute. So now, I am going to work on my test cases for validation that I've created just now. So this is my repository to which I will create my test cases. But these test cases are not associated to any requirement. You agree with me? I've just created these test cases. These are not associated with any requirement yet. So what I need to do is go in here, find out my test case that I have here, and associate it to a requirement. So when you see this, my requirement list will pop up here, right? So this application step that I have, invoke the application, will be associated with valid user can access the system, right? User authentication will also be associated with valid user can access. So now, let's go back to my requirements again. When you look at your requirements and you refresh this, there is some change that you will notice here. I have test cases associated with that, but they have not been executed. Right? So let's remove the filter once again. Look at my test cases here. Let's look at the management part here. Let's refresh the management part. Let's look at these test cases here. Let's look at the progress. Still, there is no change here, right? So now we have seen the management module in which you create releases and cycles. Then we saw the requirements module in which we maintain our requirements. From the requirements we went into test plan module where we create our test cases. Now we want to go into the test lab where you will execute these test cases. But when you go into the test lab, what you need to do is create your test set. Now, for the list of test cases that will exist, for every cycle, I will have a specific set of test cases that I need to execute. So now, I'm going to create a new test set. In this test set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, oops, sorry, my bad. In this test set that I create, I will have to associate test cases. So when I say select, now I want to select test cases that I want to execute here, right? So what test cases do I need to execute? Let's review that quickly. I want to invoke my application. After I have invoked my application, I also want to validate the GUI dialog. After I have validated the GUI dialog, I want to execute user authentication. So now, this test set that I have built here is ready for me to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this test set. And when I click this run the test set, watch what happens. Do you want to use a manual runner or do you want to use an automatic runner? We can use both of them. We can see what happens with manual runner. The manual runner brings up this window in which it says the run number of July 8th being executed at 16:41:36, being executed by tester Ashish. So this is the high level information. I begin the run. It executes the first test case, the first test step. What does it say here? Step 1, it says, is flight reservation client server open? Close all instances. Okay, I am closing this. No FRS is active on the desktop. And the actual, as expected. And my test case passes. Right? Next step, invoke the application. I invoke the application, login window will be delivered, right? Login window is delivered as expected. Test case passes. Now, this is manual runner for you. Now, where are we? On the second step, right? The second test case, in which we are looking at the title of the dialog window, which is login, as expected. Does that make sense? Agent name and password are the edit fields. OK is focused, cancel and help exist. This is also as expected. As per attachment. How do I know as per attachment? So I go open this, open the image. The image appears. Does it match to what I am expecting here? 100% yes. The agent name will be empty, cursor will appear on cursor position 1, right? So this is as expected again. So my test case 2 passed. And the third one is my user authentication step. Populate user ID Mercury and password Mercury. Click the OK button. Application will display logging in message, splash screen to welcome, and finally deliver flight reservation order form, which is empty. As expected, test step passed, and your test set that you created has passed. If I go to my test plan and I refresh and I go to requirements and refresh here, see that? I go back to my release to which I have executed test cases. I need to provide dates for these. That's why it's not able to correspond to that. When I created the release, I did mention the date, but when I created this, I did mention the dates here, but I did not mention the dates when I executed the subsequent cycle. Of these cycles, I did not mention the dates. So let me create a date of a week for this. As of now, these are not assigned to cycles, that's why we don't see these defects assigned here. So they will be assigned when I assign it to the requirement. I should also assign, when I assign it to the release, I should also assign it to the cycle. So let's see if I can do that here. Well, it's talking about number of defects. Since we do not have defects, it's not associating with it, right? Does it make sense? It's not showing me coverage, but it is only showing me defects here. So if there is a defect, it will appear here. So in the test lab, what we saw is I can execute multiple test sets. Now let's try to execute the same test set again, and in that we will log a defect and see what happens. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to force this to fail. So this has failed. Now it is showing me failed because it's showing me the latest status. Whoa, you know what? I'll have to log the defect, I'm sorry. It's not going to go there, it has to be associated to the defect that you have. So this is my test defect. Severity is medium. Defect in cycle is cycle 101. And release is defined. Detected inversion. Priority is low. Let's see what happens now. I've logged this defect. Let's see what happens now when I refresh this. There you go. So what we saw is the entire width of the application, right from management to the release, to my test plan, to my test execution, to my defect. Everything is interlinked. So it's a one-stop shop where you can do the entire test management. Does it make sense? Now the next component that you have is basically the dashboard where you can see reports. So you can create a template of a report. You can create, let's say you want to generate a new graph. And you can give it a name of my effects graph. So what we're going to do is, other than the homework that you have, which is on what are the types of servers and what are the objects that are used for building client-server and web-based applications, I request you to create test cases for GUI validation of flight reservation form, create order, update order, and delete order.
Test cases for GUI order.
GUI, flight reservation form, open order, create order, and delete order.
Adish, I'm sorry, I still didn't understand the first thing that you said.
You have to create GUI test cases, the graphic user interface test cases.
GUI, okay.
Yeah, the GUI test cases for the flight reservation system, create order form, update order form, and delete order form. Okay?
Okay.
Basically, yes, you have to create the CRUD form, test case. That's it. And of course, I would encourage that you read the QC tutorial as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's important. Not sure what's going on. I think it's probably trying to do something and it's hung. But bottom line is I've shown you the features of the application that can be exploited for Quality Center. The more you practice, the better it is for you. And the more you practice, the more questions you'll have. What do I do now? How can this be done? How will this be done? So once you do that, and you come back to the next class, we need to look at some advanced concepts in test case preparation. That I will do in the next class, which will be the next Sunday. And we will meet at 9? Sorry?
9:30.
9:30? I'm fine with 9:30, I'm okay. I can meet early, I can meet late, I have no problem. You can do a little bit of hands-on to poke around in the application in the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes now, before we call it a day today. Okay?
Can you show the one you did manual things, right? Can you see the automatic like?
No, it's for the automatic load.
The one which
You're talking about automatic runner, I think, and he's talking about a manual test case being prepared. When you make an automatic or automated test case execution,
yes.
what it does is it just generates a template. It does not automatically create. It's just a false hoax that you get. I'm not sure what's going on. Aha, that's the problem. I have a Stack Overflow. No wonder that was the issue with this. I think this will die now. getting some issues with my Internet Explorer here, so you guys can carry on. Let me just try to fix this. So everyone online, did you hear the homework? We need to create test cases for the GUI test cases of create order, edit order, and delete order. Any questions on that? Hello?
This is Julie. No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Julie. Ben, Manju, Nupur, and Sarita.
I'm good. This is Nupur. I'm good, Ashish.
Okay, Sarita.
I'm good, Ashish.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I heard.
Speaking. Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Ashish, this is Ben.
All right, Ben. Thank you. So I'm going to stop the recording now.